Hello and welcome to Mountain Climbers. I'm your host and fellow mountain climber, Whitney. And I am so excited because, as you can see, I am back in my studio. My hiatus is over and I'm back to doing inspirational mountain climber interviews with amazing guests that God has just done the impossible and the miraculous in their lives. So I do want to say that I am so thankful God has given me the strength to do this interview today. I've been looking forward to it. As many of you know, I've been battling an infection in my knee, and it's been a rough couple of months with fatigue and pain in my knee, night sweats, just all kinds of fun stuff when you have an infection. But God gave me the strength to do this today, and for that I praise Him because I really wanted to get this couple's story out. And I'm so excited for you to hear them share. And I gotta ask, have you ever been in a season in life where it feels like you hear you can't, you can't, you can't? That gets really, really wearisome sometimes. And because once you hear it enough, you just feel like, okay, maybe I can't, or what's the point? People don't think I can, so why should I? And people mean well, but sometimes they don't always say the right thing because they don't know what to say, and that can get very, very tough. But I have a feeling after you hear this story, you're going to think, okay, I'm going to look at what I can do, not at what I cannot do. And I am incredibly honored to have Jacob and Jesica Berry as my guests today on Mountain Climbers. RCC peeps, we have known Jacob for a very, very long time, and he's preached for us. But this is different because this time he is with his wife, and they are sharing their love story, the adoption process that they're going through, and just how God has opened door after door after door for them in their life. And I am just so excited for them because like, you can tell I'm speechless, but but God, seriously, everything that Jacob has done, he never thought would know. Jacob has incredible faith. He probably knew and thought, if God wanted it, He can make it possible. But probably the world, they didn't think it would happen. And marriage, adoption, ministry with his wife, it's incredible, and it would lift anyone's spirit up who watched it. And that's exactly why I wanted to talk to them and have them share, because we're living in times where it's discouraging. But when you hear someone's testimony of what God can do, it just gives you that encouragement and that push to say, you know what? I can do it too. And that's what I hope you get from this, to see that, in a world of can'ts, we serve a God of miraculous and just beautiful cans. Jacob and Jesica, welcome to Mountain Climbers.
Thank you. We are so excited to be here. Thanks for having us today.
You're so welcome. I'm excited to have you guys too. Jacob and I go way back, we're the same age, and I've always watched him, overcome milestones. But this is my first time to meet you, Jesica, so I'm excited to meet you and
Yes.
hear your story. So, Jacob, I love you. I love your ministry. As someone who has a chronic illness, every time I've watched you surpass a limitation, you might not know it, but I was in the background cheering you on because I was so excited for you. And so I can't wait to hear y'all's story. So, Jacob, I'm going to start right out and ask you a question. So you were born and raised in Oklahoma, and your parents are Yvonne and Joe Berry. That's right?
Yes.
Okay, I thought so. And so, like, I just kind of wanted to know when your mom found out she was pregnant with you and they were given the diagnosis of muscle dystrophy, they were they guided by the doctors to kind of maybe terminate the pregnancy?
Look, I was born in the 80s.
I was born in the
I
80s,
was born in 1988. So
1988.
at that time, they didn't have right, outdated information.
At the time, they didn't have all the information.
It was outdated.
It was outdated.
And my mom, when she found out that she was pregnant with me,
When my mom found out she was pregnant with
and
me,
I didn't move
and I didn't
in
move
the womb,
in the womb,
then my mom never told the doctor
my mom never told the doctor
that I didn't move.
that I didn't move in the womb.
When the doctor asked her, she would say,
When the doctors would ask her, she would say,
well,
well, a little bit,
because I was hit.
because I would hiccup.
But after I was born,
But after I was
and
born
I had all those complications,
and I had all these complications,
my mom and dad were advised
my mom and dad were advised
to take me off the ventilator
to take me off the ventilator
and let me die.
and let me die
Because the doctors thought that they had interviewed with God
because the doctors thought they had intervened with God
by putting the tape in.
by putting the trach in.
And but my mom, that thought never really entered her mind.
That thought never really entered her mind
To take that ventilator
to take the ventilator
off.
off.
She was in love no matter what.
She was going to love me no matter what.
Yeah.
And he didn't find out that he had muscular dystrophy
Until I was 7.
until he was 7.
And then
Oh.
when I was 20,
And then when I was 20,
I found out what type
I found out what type
of muscular
I
dystrophy.
gotcha.
of what type of muscular dystrophy he
Yeah.
had.
Yeah.
It's called central nuclear myopathy.
It's called central nuclear myopathy.
And the genetic mutation is on the RYR1.
The genetic mutation is on the RYR1 gene.
Okay.
So,
Gotcha. Well, yeah, I can understand. I actually have my disease is caused by a gene mutation too. So we're gene mutation buddies, Jacob. You know, we got that in common. So, you know, and I'm really glad that your mom did what she did, saying like it was just, you know, like a little bit, because, you know, I wouldn't have wanted her to go through that pain of, you know, the doctor saying, well, maybe you should think about terminating. Because, you know, not that she would, but that's hurtful to hear. And also, like, if she even thought about it, I mean, look at what you wouldn't have been able to do or accomplish. I mean, the life that you've lived. And one of the big ones is meeting this lovely lady beside you, Jessica. And so, Jessica, I did a little bit of a Facebook research and found out that you were from Wichita, Kansas. And so I just want to know a little bit about you. Like, how did you grow up? When were you saved? What were your dreams?
yeah, so I was born in Colorado. At the time, my parents were not serving the Lord,
Okay.
and they actually divorced before I was born.
Okay.
So when I was born, I lived with my mom in Colorado for until I was about 7. And at which point we moved to Wichita, Kansas to be closer to my family.
Okay.
Then about 7 years old, all of my parents got saved and gave their lives to the Lord. And so we were all serving the Lord together.
Great.
And I have a total of 8 siblings. So we always had a big family and big events and things like that. I grew up at the West Side Real Baptist Church in Wichita, Kansas. And I was saved when I was 11 years old, when we went on a youth event to a production called Judgment House.
Okay.
And it's, you know, at that, they, you know, have a scene of, you know, people passing away, and either experiencing heaven or hell. And a lot of people say that that production scares people into salvation because of the hell scene. But for me, that was not the case. Like, yes, the hell scene was scary, but it's when I went to the heaven scene, and when I saw the man who was portrayed as Jesus went to each one of us and hugged us. I get goosebumps telling you. He hugged each one of us and said, I hope to see you in heaven one day. And that was it for me. I knew I needed to ask Jesus into my heart and to be saved. And so it was 11 years old when I got saved. But all my dreams growing up is I wanted to, when I was 7 years old, I told my mom that I wanted to marry a preacher. And I just always knew in my heart that that's what I wanted. I wanted to marry, and I wanted to be in some sort of ministry.
Yeah.
And I also wanted to work in the medical field, and, and so it's funny how marrying Jacob, God's kind of given me all of those dreams, that I married a preacher in some sort of ministry, and helping him and caring for him is medical things, so God just kind of worked all that out. So
love how he does that. He is the God of details, that's for sure. And I love your salvation story, because it doesn't usually happen like that. It happens like you said, people scared of hell, not the other way where like they get excited about like going to heaven and being with Jesus. So that is so cool. I love that perspective. And that's great. So, glad you both got saved, because that means when you guys met, it was okay to think about a relationship. So when did you meet, and who was interested first?
I met her at an old-fashioned camp meeting.
I met her at an old-fashioned camp meeting. Brother Calray Evans actually preaches there.
And it was in Derby.
In Derby, Kansas. She was interested first. She couldn't get enough of this.
I love your sense of humor, Jacob. It's so funny.
So when we met, he was preaching. It was a youth night at the camp meeting, and my youth group was singing, and I was a part of the youth praise team.
Okay.
And then after the service, we just kind of shook hands and said, hi, nice to meet you. And that was about it. But we started seeing each other every year at that annual camp meeting.
Okay.
And then my family has a music ministry. And so we started going to his home church and singing and doing revivals together. And so we started building a friendship.
Yeah.
And one evening I shared my testimony at his church with the youth group. And at that point, after service, what'd you tell me?
I said, that's a good testimony.
He said that was a good testimony.
I said, can I have your number? We'll talk about that things.
Can I have your number so we could talk about godly things?
Very smooth.
Very smooth, he said.
Yes, I agree.
And that why, and I asked him, like, hey, the rule is you have to ask daddy first. Yeah. And he said, I already did. And I was like, well, that really impressed me that he did. But we were friends a long time, probably about 5 years before we even started dating.
Mm-hmm. And that's really the way to do it, honestly, to be friends first, because then I think you're more comfortable when a relationship starts to bloom. And so obviously you guys got serious, and I'm sure there was a lot of doubts and fears for many reasons. And I was just wondering if you could share about those doubts and fears and how you pushed past them to know, okay, God wants this.
Yeah.
My doubts and fears was, would she believe?
My doubts and fears were,
would she leave her family?
Would she leave her family? Because her and her family are very close.
And move to Oklahoma.
And move to Oklahoma.
And would she like to work full-time in the ministry?
And would she?
And they had a part-time.
And would she like to work full-time for the ministry because she came from a part-time ministry?
That makes sense.
And that was my concern.
That was my concerns.
What is it?
What eased my concerns
Was two things.
were two things.
One is when we were in Sacramento, Florida,
One was when we were in Sefner, Florida,
with my parents.
with my parents.
We went down there for camp meeting.
We went down there for camp
She
meeting.
got to come with us.
She got to come with us,
And she went to the altar
and she went to the altar
and prayed with a lady.
and prayed with a lady.
And I didn't have to tell her
I didn't have to tell her
or lead her.
or lead her.
And then after that,
And then after the camp meeting,
her parents requested that she would come home
her parents requested she came home
back to Kansas.
back to Kansas.
So we had to get her to the airport.
We had to get her to the airport.
And we flew her back,
We flew her back.
and it really broke both of our hearts.
It really broke both of our hearts
Separate,
to separate.
and we knew then it even broke my parents' heart.
He said it even broke my parents' heart.
And so we knew then that it was.
We knew then it was meant to be.
Oh,
I just got it.
He said, at least I did.
One of his.
Yeah, my fears were, I didn't fear the disability. I didn't fear the
Yeah.
ventilator, the wheelchair.
Yeah.
I feared, would I make a good wife? You know, would I do a good job? Would I do a good job taking care of him?
yeah,
You
yeah.
know, and then my other concern was, would I be a blessing and an asset to the ministry? You know, because I didn't want to hinder,
Yeah.
you know, God had already established his ministry and I wanted to become a part of it, you
Yeah.
know, and I always had a deep desire to serve the Lord and I wanted to help and be a blessing. And I think what eased my concern was probably at the same camp meeting that we went to,
Yeah.
because I was okay being over 1,400 miles away from my family. I was okay. And I felt the spirit of the Lord there. And I felt the calling of God there.
Awesome.
And I
And
knew
I felt the Lord there too.
you felt the anointing there too.
Yeah, that helped me too.
That helped you too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I knew that that's what God was calling me to do. And before we even started dating, God told me 2 different times that I was supposed to marry Jacob. And so when God places a call in your life, there's just something about when you are obedient to that call, God takes care of everything, you know, and he makes it okay. You know, even if you have concerns or worries or how could I do this or that, God takes care of it all.
Yeah. Oh, for real. Definitely. I love this, how like, you know, God worked this out, the details that he put it both on your hearts, and that's how you knew that it was right. But something that really sticks out to me that I think is amazing is I really thought Jacob would say one of his concerns was, you know, would she marry me because of my disability? But he didn't. And that just shows me, Jacob, how you have the right mindset about how like your worth and like God created you and you're worthy. And you know, I think that's really great and I commend you for that. And it, you know, because it's something I struggle with. So the fact that, you know, like you know your worth, you know God made you, and you know like he has a purpose for you, I think that is amazing. So good for you. And I hope people who listen to this take that on themselves who have doubts and fears as well. And so Jacob, I know you're a creative guy, so I gotta ask, how did you propose?
Well, she told me beforehand that after all the drama and sending it back home and all that.
Oh, she told me afterhand, after all the drama of sending her back home.
That she wanted it to be a surprise.
She wanted it to be a surprise.
And she requested that her family was there.
And she requested her family be there.
Okay.
And so we called her pastor,
So we called her pastor, Brother Gary Ledbetter,
and we told her about this idea.
and we told him about this idea.
And so on Easter Sunday morning,
So on Easter Sunday morning,
we totally surprised her
we totally surprised her
by coming
to
the church,
by coming to the church,
her church.
to her church.
And her sister said that she looked out the window
Her sister said she looked out the window
and she smiled and said,
engagement day.
Engagement day.
That's so cool.
And she said it in her Sunday school class.
She said it in her Sunday school class.
And she wasn't there.
Yeah, and Jessica wasn't there.
After church,
After church,
after the preaching,
after the preaching,
Brother Gary
Brother Gary
got up there and said,
got up there and said, I'd like for Brother Jacob to give a brief word of testimony before we dismiss.
I got up there
So I got up there,
as usual,
as usual,
and I talked about how miracles God has done
and I talked about all the miracles that God has done
in my life.
in my life.
And then I switched,
Then I switched course,
and I said, and here lately,
and I said, here lately,
that another miracle
God has done another miracle
in my life.
in my life.
And then I called Jessica at that time.
I called Jessica up to the front.
She was thinking, don't trip, don't trip.
She was thinking, don't trip, don't trip, don't trip.
And I gave her speech. I took her by the hand,
I took her by the hand
and I gave her speech
and I gave this speech
about a virtuous woman's price.
about a virtuous woman's price
As
is far above rubies.
And then I asked her to marry me.
Then I asked her to marry me.
To the witch,
To the witch, she answered 3 times
while interrupting my speech.
while interrupting my speech
By saying,
by saying,
yes,
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 yes.
yes.
And then I put the ring on her finger.
I put the ring on her finger and we hugged.
And
And as we hugged, Brother Gary said teasingly, hey, hey, wait till after y'all get married. Not now.
That's great. So did you get to finish your speech, Jacob?
Yes.
Okay. Awesome. And were you surprised, Jessica?
I was totally surprised when he showed up because they walked in the door and I was on the other part of the sanctuary and my mom was standing there with Jacob and his mom.
Yeah.
And I looked and it was almost like I was thinking my mind was playing a trick on me. Like, why is he here? I thought he was supposed to be preaching somewhere. They told me he was going to another church. Well, it was to my church. So I was totally surprised.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Oh, I love it. So, well, you met, you fell in love, you got married, and then you started serving together. And from what I can see, it just fell perfectly and seamlessly into place. And I would like to share how you minister as husband and wife.
Yeah. Yeah. It felt just perfect. It was definitely God ordained, it just went smoothly and just worked, and with all 4 of us, including Jacob's parents, Joe and Yvonne, we just became a team, all of us. And, because I sing and things on our very, very first revivals, Jacob encouraged me, just let's sing, let's get you out there, let's do this together, and he told me that just because our ministry is called Jacob Berry Ministries, we are one. And so he said, it's your ministry just as much as it is mine, because it's all God's ministry.
I love that.
And so, from the very get-go, we work together, and God just placed it so perfectly. And of course, any marriage, personally, you have to learn to be married and learn to work together and things. And really our first year of marriage went pretty smoothly too. I mean, there's a few bumps in the road, just like anybody.
Oh yeah.
But even, with having to stay home during COVID and quarantine, for his health, that it was really a blessing for us. Because yes, exactly. And we learned that because all we had was God and each other, so we learned to love to be together and focus on our marriage, and it really strengthened our marriage. And this became home to me. It wasn't just a stopping place in the road, so we were really able to settle in and work. So,
I mean, like the pandemic had a lot of negatives, but I think that was a positive where people could just unwind, get to, know family again, husband and wife know each other again. And, me personally, I was burnt out on some things. And so just to getting, to rest and be, I needed that. So that, at least that was a positive that came out of the pandemic. But anyway, that is so cool. I love that you guys get to do life and serve together. But I think your greatest adventure is just around the corner, and that is adoption. I am so excited for you guys. Like, how did that come into your hearts to pursue that?
Well, we've been praying about children for 3 years.
We've been praying about children for 3 years.
When we first got married,
we
wanted to get to know me.
She wanted to get to know me,
How to take care of me.
how to take care of me.
And then
After that, after the first year,
then we would pray about how to
then we started praying about how to have a baby.
Because we believe God can do anything.
Because we believe God can do anything.
But then we got told.
Well, go back first. When COVID hit, we had been planning to pursue other avenues on how to grow our family.
Okay.
Yeah, because we were worried about genetics and it's passable,
Yeah.
And so, we had been praying, and we felt like, okay, let's go to doctors, let's pursue this. And then COVID hit. And of course the country shut down. So there was none of that. And we were really disappointed because we were ready, we're ready to be parents.
Yeah.
But we started seeking God and just praying and praying and praying. And one day while I was seeking the Lord, God told us to wait. And so we thought, okay, Lord, we'll keep praying. We'll keep just waiting and trusting you. Now go ahead. I'm sorry. So in March of 2021,
we got a phone call or a text message
we got a text message
from my cousin,
from my cousin,
Miranda.
Miranda.
There's a nurse that works for an OBGYN.
She's a nurse that works for an OBGYN.
Okay.
They have the drop-in situation.
They have a drop-in situation
And
where a birth mother would come in to deliver her child and decide that she doesn't want to parent, but wants to find a family for her child. So Miranda texted us about a baby girl.
And so we felt like that was God's way of answering our prayers.
So we felt like that was God's way of answering our prayers.
And how to go about it.
Of how to go about it.
And all that stuff.
Yeah, and all that. And even though that situation didn't work out, and of course we were disappointed. We felt like that was God's answer. Like, this is the route I want you to take.
Yeah. I could Yeah, I can see that definitely. And you know, I just think adoption is such a cool thing to do, you know, bring some child in that, you know, not only might not get like the material things, but also the spiritual upbringing
Yeah.
they might not have gotten if you didn't
Yeah.
adopt. So that's very cool. But I do know that the adoption process takes a while, you know, with interviews, background checks, and home studies. And Jacob, I gotta ask, were you ever worried that the adoption would be denied because of your disability?
Yes, I was.
Yes, I was,
Actually,
actually.
I was worried that I wouldn't do the nonsense.
I was worried we would be denied.
Mhm.
So the government controls a lot of things.
The government controls a lot of things for people like me.
And so, yeah, I was worried.
I was worried.
And I was worried also that at first my
I was worried also that a birth mother
when
wouldn't choose us because of my
when
disability
they look at the life,
when they look at our life book.
but our
Our home study provider
said that that happens a lot of times.
but that happens a lot of times
That people in wheelchairs adopt.
that people in wheelchairs do adopt.
And so then she really encouraged me.
She really encouraged me. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
that had to be another confirmation that, you know, you were doing what God wanted you to do. And that had to be a relief. And especially when you got approved. I mean, that had to be the
Right.
major confirmation. So where
Right.
are you at in the process of adopting
Yeah.
right now?
Well, I want to say one more thing
Go for
on
it.
that.
Yeah.
Just that, you know, like Jacob's, when he was in high school,
Yeah.
you know, he told his mom, you know, kind of jokingly right before school started, he said, "Mom, girls just dig guys that can walk." Oh, I'm sorry, chicks just dig guys that can walk. And she said, "Yes, but if God wants you to have a wife, then you will have a wife because she will see past the ventilator and she will see past the wheelchair." And God did that exactly, you know, with me. And you know, and that's what God does for us. You know, the Bible says that God looks on the heart. What man sees on the outside, God looks on the heart, you know, and he sees us for who we are.
Yeah.
And so we're praying that for our birth mother, you know, and for our future with our children,
Yeah.
that God would see his heart, that he's going to be an amazing dad, you know, and we're so excited.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hopefully, you know, whatever child you adopt, I hope they develop your sense of humor, Jacob. That's what I hope.
He'll know every joke there ever was.
Exactly. I know. I was really sad because remember when you were the evangelist for Rubyville's church camp, youth camp?
Yeah,
Forever ago.
That was fun.
That was fun, but it was actually my first year out because I was too old to go. And so I was like, how did I miss like the time that Jacob was going to be the evangelist? Anyway, it was very sad because I wanted to hear all the jokes and one-liners that you had, but
yes,
I didn't. So it was what it was, but I knew the kids enjoyed it. It was great.
Yeah.
So, you know, you guys, you faced a lot of cannots, you know, and the world told you that over and over and over. And, you know, people, they mean well, but they just are clueless because they don't know what to say. And usually what they say is the right thing to say. And, you know, they mean well, but it still hurts. And it's hard to get past that. And, you know, there's other people who feel that way. And, you know, like what you've done, what I love is you've changed those cannots and made them cans and allowed God to work through your story to show people, you know, you're God of impossibilities. He takes impossibility and he makes them possible. But
Yes.
when you hear can't over and over and over, you get weary. Sometimes you start to believe it. So, what would you tell people? How would you encourage them if they're facing that? The world's telling them you can't, that's just a pipe dream, there's no way you'll ever accomplish that. How would you tell them to keep going and see themselves how God sees them?
Well, the Bible, the Bible says it best.
The Bible says it best. Philippians 4:13 says, I can do all things through Christ, which strengtheneth me. But the key is, a lot of people
when it takes the Christ out
want to take the Christ part out
and say I can do all things,
and say, I can do all things.
but it's not so.
But it's not so.
The Bible says
The Bible
I can
says,
do all things
I can do all things
in Christ.
in Christ.
You know, it has to be in Christ
It has to be in
and
Christ
in His will.
and in His will.
And my mama was taught me
My mom always taught me
that never look at what you can't do.
never look at what you can't do,
Mhm.
Always look at what you
but always look
can do.
at always what you can do.
For example,
For example,
when I was in middle school,
when I was in middle school,
I was allowed to go into the locker room
I was allowed to go into the locker room
with the football team
with the football team
and put the camera around so you can see all the posters.
Oh, he's wanting to show you all of his OU
Yeah.
football posters. And
Cool.
You can see.
so as you can see,
I like the foot.
I like sports.
And I love Oklahoma football.
I love Oklahoma football.
You know, we got the dynasty of 7 champions
We got the dynasty of 7 championships
and all that stuff.
and all that.
So, I really love football.
I really love football.
And I got to go into the locker room.
I got to go into the locker room with the team in middle school.
But
Amazing.
high school,
In high school,
they wouldn't let me out of school
they wouldn't let me out on the field
because discrimination.
because discrimination.
And because they said that
They said
I was a liability.
I was a liability.
Because they were afraid the players might get hurt.
They were afraid the players might get hurt.
So anyways, my mom tried to find it,
My mom tried to fight it
but to no avail.
to no avail.
And then the new coach that just got hired
The new coach that
at
just
the
got
high
hired
school
at the high school
wanted me to be part of the team,
wanted me to be a part of the team,
but the college wouldn't let him.
but the school wouldn't let him.
Wow.
And so, we prayed about it,
So we prayed about it.
and my mom said
And my mom said
to the coach,
to the coach,
why not just go to the locker room
why not just let him come into the locker room
and pray with the team?
and pray with the team?
And
Yeah.
so, the coach agreed, and
So the coach agreed.
he let me in the locker room
He let me go to the locker
and
room
pray the Lord's prayer with them
and pray the Lord's Prayer with them
before each home game.
before each home game.
And so I couldn't go out on the field
So I couldn't go out on the field
because that man says.
because of what man says.
Mhm.
But I could
But I could
go into the locker room
go into the locker room
and pray with the team.
and pray with the team.
And that meant more
And that meant more.
than just being out there on the field.
And that meant more than just being out on the field.
Amazing.
Like, those boys will never forget it.
Because the boys will never forget it.
Yeah.
And when we were dating, we got a lot of, well, are you sure they would ask me, Jessica, are you sure you want to marry Jacob? Because he can't open a door for you and he can't carry you over the threshold and things like that. And I said, just because we can't do things the traditional way, where he could open a door for me, if he pulls a handle or whatever, he can go and push the handicap accessible button and the door will automatically open for me, And so just because we can't do it the traditional way, we could do it our way, And my dad, in a daddy loving concern way, asked, Jessica, are you okay with the idea of being a widow at 30 years old? Because, he may not have a full life expectancy and live that long.
Yeah.
And I said, no, I won't be okay with it, but I don't want to forfeit 5 years of loving him for the chance of maybe one day losing him, and so just because we can't do certain things, God opens the door where we can do things.
Yeah. That's crazy to me. I understand your dad's question, but the pettiness of he won't be able to open a door for you, like, really? Like you're focusing on wow. How about he loves you, he'll be the spiritual head, he'll take good care of you,
Yes.
Wow. Like I said, we're clueless.
Yeah. Well, and I dated 2 other gentlemen before Jacob, and my youth pastor even told Jacob, he said, I never understood why Jessica didn't end up with these guys, because they were, successful and had the money and all these things. But he said, I realized when Jessica started dating Jacob that she wasn't looking for success. She wasn't looking for money or things like that. Yeah. She wanted a spiritual leader. And that really is the truth, that was more important to me for my husband to lead scripture reading, and my husband to lead the prayer in our home, and make godly decisions, and not me try to do it for both of us.
No, that's great, and that totally makes sense, and it's how it should be, no matter what, whether it's 2 healthy people married, or like one able-bodied person and a person who has a disability. It should be that way across the board. Like, totally. I totally agree. And like, it's hard when people only look on the outside. They don't take time, and they make assumptions. They don't take time to ask questions, and like sincere questions, not ridiculous questions. They don't try to think that through, and that does like okay, wait, you thought that was okay to ask me, So I totally get it, but I do want to ask, from one author to another, Jacob, you got to share about your books.
Yeah. And I did want to say too, on that last statement, that sometimes even for able-bodied people, we all have things we cannot do.
Exactly.
And it's in a way it becomes where God closes a door. Yeah. Because that's not what he created you to do or created you to be. But there's things you can do, because that's what God's will is for your life. Yeah. So if we focus on the things we can do and trust God for those things, then we live in his plan and in his purpose, and everything else goes so smoothly. Yeah.
And our minds are,
and just because our bodies are physically disabled, our minds are there.
Our mind is there. So I can adopt.
So I can adopt, because our minds are there. I can adopt.
We're ready to adopt.
We are ready to adopt.
But it has to be God's will.
It has to be God's will and his timing.
Yes.
Yeah. But your books.
The sharpest people I know, Jacob. So I mean, the memorization you do, preach, it blows my mind. So all people would only have to talk to you 2 seconds to know that you're really smart. So
and ornery, but really smart.
Yes.
This is the first book.
Okay. What's it called?
This is the autobiography.
Okay.
Titled Living the Gift.
Okay.
because that's my tagline.
and
Each day, living the gift.
and each day
Each day is a gift.
so we're living.
So we're living the gift.
Mhm.
Here, we can bring it a little closer. So people can see.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's everybody was curious about like all the little details.
This is the autobiography because people were curious about all the little details
Yeah.
of the story of my life. So he wrote this, but for more like in-depth
Yeah.
information of his story. This one's called In My Weakness.
This one, I like this one.
He said, I like this one.
This one has more preaching and more devotion.
This has more preaching style and devotionals.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. In My Weakness. And he just recently got this one published.
That is amazing, Jacob. Congratulations. That's so awesome. Well, where can people purchase these?
They can be purchased at jacobberryministries.org. We have the first one on there. We don't quite yet have this one on there, but we do have a free app that you can download either on the App Store or Google Play.
Mhm.
And on there, there's a give icon. It's got a little heart on it. If anyone wants to do that and do it as a one-time gift.
Yeah.
And then a small note that it's for a book and send us your address and things that we will ship these to you. Or you can message us through Facebook Messenger or whatever social media outlet.
Yeah.
And we can get them sent out to you.
Perfect. Well, I know people are going to love to hear your story, Jacob. And, like you said, a more in-depth, version of it like it is in your book. And so do you guys have anything else to add or anything you want to say?
Yeah, thank you for having us. We've had a blast.
You're welcome. Well, I just want to say that, I love you too. And you guys are fantastic together. I mean, it's so cool to see you guys together because like you can tell like it was meant to be. And what I really hope that people, see through this is like you mentioned, different's not bad. But a lot of times different is more than you could ever imagine it would ever be. And that's what you guys show. And I love it. And, you didn't let the can'ts overwhelm you and like alter your course. You kept looking at the cans and kept climbing that mountain. And you show this truth. When your strength comes from the right source, there's not a mountain you can't climb.